In the early hours of December 29, 2017, a horrifying incident occurred on a quiet road in Argentina. Fernando Pastorizo, a 20-year-old, was discovered dead with 2 gunshot wounds. At first, the police suspected a robbery, but Fernando's belongings remained untouched. As the investigation deepened, a shocking revelation came to light. The culprit was his longtime girlfriend, Nahir Galarza. This was not just a case of murder but a tale of toxic love, manipulation, and a trial that captivated the entire nation. Was justice truly served? And what drove a young woman to become Argentina's youngest female sentenced to life in prison? Let's unravel the story behind this chilling case. Fernando Pastorizo, born in 1997 in Entre Rios, Argentina, was the son of Gustavo Pastorizo and Silvia Mantaras. Despite their divorce, his parents maintained a strong, amicable relationship to ensure a stable upbringing for Fernando and his sister Carla. Fernando was known for his warm and outgoing personality, easily forming meaningful friendships. His humor and kindness made him beloved by his family and friends. Devoted and responsible, he was seen as a model of loyalty and compassion. In contrast, Nahir Galarza, born in 1998, was the daughter of Marcelo Galarza, a senior police officer, and Yamina Crow, a former officer. Unlike Fernando, Nahir grew up in a household where indulgence was the norm. Her mother often overlooked her misbehavior and, at times, even encouraged it. Her father, though stricter, was idolized as an authority figure. This permissive environment shaped Nahir into a manipulative and self-centered individual, willing to exploit others to achieve her desires. At school, she was admired for her beauty and popularity but was often described as arrogant and a bully to those she deemed inferior. These two individuals, raised in vastly different environments, Fernando, kind-hearted and loving, and Nahir, manipulative and self-serving, found themselves in a volatile relationship that ended in an unthinkable tragedy. Fernando and Nahir began their relationship as young teenagers. What initially appeared to be a typical youthful romance quickly turned into something darker and more tumultuous. While Fernando was deeply in love and committed to Nahir, she displayed indifference and frequently betrayed his trust. Nahir openly pursued relationships with other boys, even inviting them into her home while keeping Fernando emotionally dependent. Her lack of commitment and repeated infidelities created a toxic dynamic where Fernando was caught between his feelings for her and the pain she caused. Despite the betrayals and emotional pain inflicted by Nahir, Fernando, inexperienced in relationships and blinded by his affection, continued to endure her behavior. Over time, however, his tolerance began to wane as he recognized the toxic nature of their bond. Whenever Fernando expressed dissatisfaction or hinted at ending the relationship, Nahir resorted to extreme measures to maintain control. These included emotional manipulation, verbal abuse, and physical intimidation. She frequently checked his phone, interrogated him about interactions with other women, and made unfounded accusations of infidelity, all while continuing to see other men herself. Nahir's controlling tendencies became more evident over time. Her jealousy led to aggressive outbursts whenever she felt threatened by Fernando's social life or independence. On several occasions, she used her father's position as a high-ranking police officer to intimidate him, warning, "You'll regret it if you leave me." These threats, combined with her emotional and physical control, left Fernando feeling trapped and powerless, unable to escape the cycle of abuse. The situation escalated dramatically on Christmas night, December 25, 2017. While at a nightclub, Fernando was devastated to see Nahir openly kissing another man, Rafael, one of her boyfriends. Witnessing this public betrayal deeply hurt and humiliated him. Summoning the courage to confront her, he demanded an explanation. Instead of calming the situation, Nahir responded with hostility. Her friend, Sol Martinez, joined in the altercation. Together, they verbally and physically attacked Fernando in front of onlookers. Sol punched him in the face, while Nahir mocked him and insulted his character and family. The incident left Fernando emotionally and physically wounded. Confiding in his friends, he described the pain of that night, emphasizing how Nahir's cruel remarks about his family, whom he deeply cherished, cut the deepest. This event became the tipping point for Fernando, who realized he could no longer endure the toxic relationship. Encouraged by his friends, he resolved to leave Nahir for good. With newfound determination, he began planning his escape, enrolling in college in another city for a fresh start, away from the chaos and emotional distress she had caused. Moving away gave Fernando hope for rebuilding his life and breaking free from her manipulative grip. Despite his plans, Fernando remained cautious in his interactions with Nahir, wary of her unpredictable and controlling behavior. Unfortunately, his decision to leave became the catalyst for a devastating turn of events. For Nahir, losing control over Fernando was unacceptable. Her jealousy and sense of entitlement escalated, and she began devising ways to keep him tethered to her. On the night of December 28, 2017, Fernando Pasto, weary from months of emotional turmoil, agreed to meet Nahir one last time. She had pleaded for the meeting, claiming she wanted to spend one final night together before they parted ways. Reluctantly, and perhaps hoping to end things amicably, Fernando arrived at her house, unaware of the true danger awaiting him inside the Galazzo home. Everything appeared normal. The pair spent several hours together, and according to some accounts, they shared intimate moments, perhaps as a final attempt to reconcile. Yet beneath Nahir's calm demeanor lay something darker. Unknown to Fernando, she had already decided that if she couldn't control him, no one else would. As the clock neared 5 a.m., the night took a sinister and irreversible turn. On December 29, 2017, Fernando prepared to leave, eager to start a new chapter and break free from Nahir's toxic hold. Just as he was ready to go, Nahir stopped him with a seemingly simple request: a ride to her grandmother's house. To Fernando, it was a minor favor. He saw no reason to refuse. They set off on his motorcycle through the still, quiet streets of the city, the air heavy with unspoken tension. In her pocket, Nahir carried her father's 9mm service pistol, a grim contrast to her composed exterior. As they reached a dark, isolated stretch of road, Nahir tapped Fernando on the shoulder, asking him to stop. Trusting her as he always had, Fernando complied, pulling over in the desolate area. When he turned to see what she needed, Nahir drew the gun and fired a shot into his back. The impact sent Fernando tumbling from the motorcycle, collapsing onto the ground in shock and pain. As he lay helpless, Nahir approached and fired a second shot at point-blank range, ending his life instantly. In the unsettling silence that followed, Nahir began her next calculated move. She crouched near Fernando's lifeless body, frantically searching for the shell casings to conceal the evidence. While she managed to retrieve one casing, another escaped her notice, leaving a crucial piece of proof behind. Her crime was nearly witnessed by a passing taxi driver, who saw a girl bent over someone on the ground. Believing it to be nothing serious, the driver continued on, unaware of the grim reality, though his brief sighting would later become pivotal testimony. After completing her gruesome act, Nahir walked home as if nothing had happened. Security cameras captured her calmly strolling through the streets at 5:22 a.m., her demeanor unervingly composed. Upon reaching home, she returned the pistol to its place, took a shower, and went to bed, leaving no immediate trace of the horror she had unleashed. By early morning, December 29th, the quiet streets of Gualeguaychú were shattered by the discovery of Fernando Pasto's lifeless body lying beside his motorcycle on a remote road. Police arrived, initially suspecting a robbery gone wrong, a common occurrence in such isolated areas. But something about the scene felt off. Fernando's motorcycle remained upright and undamaged, while his wallet, phone, and money were untouched. There were no signs of a struggle or theft and no apparent motive for the killer to leave without taking anything. Investigators quickly ruled out a random act of violence. This was personal, deliberate, and calculated. As word of Fernando's death spread through the tight-knit community, shock rippled among friends and family. Stories of Fernando's recent struggles began to surface, and one name emerged repeatedly: Nahir Galazzo. Nahir wasn't just Fernando's ex-girlfriend. She had been an omnipresent force in his life for years. Their tumultuous relationship, marked by frequent fights and dramatic reconciliations, was well known. Those close to Fernando were aware of how toxic their bond had become, and police now had a clear lead in their investigation. When investigators brought Nahir in for questioning, her behavior stunned them. On social media, she had posted a heartfelt tribute to Fernando, calling him the love of her life and mourning his loss. But in the interrogation room, she was unervingly composed. Her detachment was palpable as she discussed Fernando's death with cold precision, treating it like a minor inconvenience. Detectives noted the absence of any visible grief or remorse. There were no tears, no trembling voice, no signs of emotional distress. When questioned about her relationship with Fernando, her responses only deepened the investigators' suspicions. The calm exterior she maintained masked the dark truth beneath her actions. Nahir minimized the significance of her relationship with Fernando, describing it as casual and insisting they were little more than acquaintances who occasionally spent time together. This blatant contradiction to the evidence of their long-term relationship immediately raised red flags for investigators. When pressed further, Nahir began deflecting blame, suggesting that Fernando's death might have been the work of a family member or even one of his closest friends. Her attempts to shift suspicion, coupled with her detached demeanor, deepened investigators' doubts. As evidence against her began to pile up, Nahir's story started to unravel. Initially, she denied any involvement in the murder, claiming ignorance about what had happened to Fernando. However, faced with mounting pressure and irrefutable evidence, she eventually admitted to the shooting but framed it as an act of self-defense. Nahir alleged that on the night of the murder, Fernando had become violent during an argument. According to her, he had taken her father's gun and forced her onto his motorcycle. She claimed that during a struggle, they fell, causing the gun to discharge accidentally and strike Fernando in the back. Panicked, she said she unintentionally fired a second shot, killing him. This version of events, however, did not align with the physical evidence. Forensic analysis revealed that the gunshot wounds were precise, not accidental. The trajectory of the bullets and the position of Fernando's body indicated he was deliberately shot while defenseless. Furthermore, investigators noted that Nahir made no attempt to seek help after the shooting. Instead, she focused on covering her tracks, collecting shell casings, returning the gun to its place, and walking home as if nothing had happened. Witness accounts and forensic findings further dismantled Nahir's claims. A taxi driver who passed by the scene reported seeing a young woman crouched near a man lying on the ground. At the time, he assumed it was a minor incident, but his testimony later placed Nahir at the crime scene. Security footage showed her calmly walking home at 5:22 a.m., displaying no signs of fear or distress. Additionally, investigators recovered a shell casing she had missed, providing critical evidence directly linking her to the crime. Friends of Fernando came forward, recounting the abuse and manipulation he endured during his relationship with Nahir. They revealed that Fernando had confided in them about his plans to leave her for good, describing the relationship as toxic and emotionally draining. These testimonies painted a stark picture of escalating control and violence, culminating in tragedy. As the case against Nahir solidified, her inconsistent narratives further undermined her credibility. It became evident that Fernando's death was no accident, and the carefully crafted facade Nahir maintained was beginning to crumble. In response, Nahir's parents acted quickly to shield their daughter. Marcelo Galarza, a senior police officer, used his connections to secure one of Argentina's top criminal defense lawyers. The defense team crafted a strategy portraying Nahir not as a calculated killer but as a victim of prolonged domestic abuse who acted out of fear. Marcelo publicly claimed that Fernando had mistreated Nahir for years, leaving her with visible injuries she had dismissed as accidents. This defense set the stage for a contentious legal battle, where the lines between victim and perpetrator were hotly debated, and the truth of what transpired that night became the focal point of national scrutiny. The defense presented photographs of Nahir's bruises, reportedly from hockey, but alleged they were evidence of Fernando's violence. On the stand, Nahir described Fernando as a controlling and abusive partner, portraying herself as a victim trapped in a toxic relationship. She claimed that on the night of the murder, Fernando had forced her onto his motorcycle and assaulted her, leaving her no choice but to act in self-defense. Her emotional testimony was designed to sway both the court and public opinion, but inconsistencies in her story soon emerged. Fernando's friends testified about the emotional and physical abuse he had endured during their relationship. They depicted Nahir as manipulative and controlling, recounting how she monitored his phone, isolated him from friends, and physically attacked him out of jealousy. They also revealed Fernando's plans to leave her, sharing his fears about how she might react. A pivotal moment came when Gabriel Cartana, a psychologist hired by Nahir's defense team, testified. While expected to support her claims of abuse, Cartana instead described Nahir as manipulative, narcissistic, and spoiled. He dismissed the idea that Fernando had been violent, asserting that Nahir had exercised psychological control over him. This damaging testimony from her own expert undermined her defense significantly. As the trial unfolded, public opinion became sharply divided. Feminist groups and activists rallied behind Nahir, viewing her as a victim of gender-based violence and calling for her release. Protests filled the streets, and social media buzzed with hashtags demanding justice for Nahir. Conversely, others sided with Fernando's family, emphasizing the compelling evidence against Nahir, which painted her as a cold and calculated murderer unwilling to accept responsibility for her actions. Day by day, the weight of testimony and forensic evidence exposed contradictions in Nahir's narrative. Her defense team's efforts to shift the blame and depict Fernando as the aggressor collapsed under scrutiny. As the trial neared its conclusion, it became clear that justice would not be swayed by theatrics or public outcry. The truth of Nahir's actions could not be concealed, no matter how carefully she attempted to craft her story. On July 3, 2018, a packed courtroom in Gualeguaychú fell silent as the judge delivered a verdict months in the making. After weeks of emotional testimony, forensic findings, and conflicting accounts, the jury convicted Nahir Galarza of aggravated homicide. She was sentenced to life imprisonment, becoming the youngest woman in Argentina's history to receive such a punishment at just 19 years old. For Fernando Pastorizzo's family, the verdict was bittersweet. They had endured months of grief over the loss of their beloved son while facing the public spectacle of the trial and Nahir's attempts to vilify him. Though the conviction brought some vindication, no sentence could restore the life that had been taken. As the courtroom emptied, Fernando's family expressed gratitude to the legal team and reaffirmed their commitment to honoring his memory. While the verdict could not bring him back, it served as a powerful statement that justice had been achieved. The trial of Nahir Galarza captured national and international attention, gripping audiences with its shocking details and polarizing narratives. Headlines across Argentina chronicled every twist, cementing the case as one of the country's most sensational and tragic legal battles. Every development was heavily covered, with Nahir's image dominating news outlets and social media. To some, she was a cold-blooded murderer. To others, she was a young woman unfairly vilified. The case polarized public opinion, sparking heated debates about gender, privilege, and justice. For Fernando Pastorizzo's family, the loss was immeasurable. The trial, with its accusations and distortions, forced them to relive the pain of his death while fighting to preserve his memory. His parents, Gustavo and Silvia, mourned not only the son they had lost but also the future he would never have. Each photograph, testimony, and piece of evidence presented in court served as a heartbreaking reminder of the life stolen from him. Nahir's family faced a reckoning of their own. Her father, Marcelo Galarza, once a respected police officer, saw his career and reputation collapse. Later, Nahir accused him of being the real perpetrator, an allegation widely viewed as a desperate bid to evade justice. This claim fractured the Galarza family, leaving Marcelo isolated and estranged from his wife and daughter. The trial not only revealed Nahir's actions but also exposed the cracks in the privileged upbringing that had fostered her manipulative behavior. The murder of Fernando Pastorizzo stands as a haunting reminder of the dangers of unchecked manipulation and violence. His life, tragically cut short, continues to resonate as a cautionary tale about the devastating impact of toxic relationships and the importance of seeking help before conflicts escalate. This case invites reflection on the societal factors that shaped its outcome. How do privilege and influence affect the pursuit of justice? What lessons can we learn about addressing abuse in relationships, regardless of gender? And how can systems better protect individuals from manipulation and control? As we conclude, we remember Fernando not just as a victim, but as a young man who deserved a future filled with promise and happiness. His story serves as a call to action, a reminder that justice, though painful, is essential. Let us honor his memory by ensuring his story is never forgotten. If you found this story thought-provoking and wish to explore more compelling cases with us, please hit the subscribe button to support our channel. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our latest videos. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.